Good late morning, everybody. We're going to do the routine guide post-mortem here, but a lot of this ground has already been kind of uncovered in the morning video. Like, this video is kind of just discussing the same thing from a different angle. So, before I get to the actual post-mortem, because it's going to be quick, since I kind of already laid down the law this morning about what matters now, I want to talk about the opposite angle, which is tanking, because obviously before yesterday, a lot of Seahawks fans were on Team Tank. Well, not a lot, but some. And I want to discuss that angle at this point, because now the Seahawks have 7 wins. When we had 6 wins, Team Tank, I mean, I didn't agree with it, of course. I'm not a tanking person. I like to win. I don't want to breed a culture of losing. I don't get into that stuff. I don't want to throw away games now in favor of getting college players that I can't even guarantee they're going to be good most of the time. But I kind of sort of got it a little bit because there was some upside, but the upside's basically gone at this point. So let's get into this a little bit. So as of this moment, Seattle picks 15th in the draft. So right in the middle, basically. If the Seahawks lose out, let's just start from that assumption. The Seahawks lose out, go to 7-10, and let's say they even catch some favorable strength of schedule breaks, which is hard because when you lose to a team, they gain a win, which actually makes your strength of schedule higher. But let's say they catch some strength of schedule breaks with the other teams, and maybe it drops to like 5-1-0. I don't know. So we're currently tied record wise and picking behind New Orleans and Denver. Denver is almost definitely going to win at least one game to end the season. New Orleans, I think they play Atlanta last game of the year, so they're probably going to win at least one more game. So we would jump Denver, we would jump New Orleans. And then you look at these 3 teams right here that are 6-8, so one game worse than us. They all have terrible strength of schedules. So if we want to jump them, we would need to lose out, and they would need to win 2 games. Now, Green Bay is going to win 2 games, I think, because they play 2 really bad teams as part of their last 3. Vegas could go one way or the other. Let's say they do. Let's say they do win 2 games. Let's say they beat Denver and they beat, well, they're not going to beat the Chiefs, but they could, I guess, beat the Colts. Maybe. Let's say they do. Atlanta's not going to win 2 of their last 3. So you're looking at jumping 4 teams at this point. So you go up to 14, 13, 12, 11, and then you're picking still behind Atlanta. So then you've got the Titans and the Chargers. You would need these 2 teams to win 2 games. The Chargers are not going to win 2 games because they got their backup quarterback and an interim coach. Tennessee, maybe. You do play Tennessee, so you can give them a win by losing to them, and then they could win another game, I guess. They're not completely terrible. So let's say you then jump Tennessee, you would then be picking at 10. And then you've got the Jets, you've got the Giants, and you've got the Bears. And you would need those 3 teams to win. It would be, I think they would need to win out because their strength of schedule is weaker. That's kind of the thing that might hurt here. Well, I don't want to say hurt because this shouldn't even be a thought in anybody's mind anymore for reasons I'm about to get into. You still wouldn't jump them. So you would need the Jets to basically win out, and they're not going to do that. They're not getting Rodgers back. You would need the Giants to win out. That's not happening. And then you need the Bears to win out. That's not happening. So in the realistic best case scenario for the Seahawks, for their draft pick, I could only get them up to like 10th. I could get them up to 10th. And again, that's the best case scenario. They jump Denver, they jump New Orleans, they jump Vegas, they jump Green Bay, and then they jump Tennessee. That gets them to 10. So all that effort, all that tanking, and again, I understand teams don't tank. Tanking is just a catchphrase for losing. It's just a different way of saying losing. So that would get you just barely into the top 10. And again, that's with fortuitous breaks. You would need Tennessee to win one of their other last 2 games. So you might even argue it's more realistic to say they're going to end up at 11. So at pick 11, what are you doing? Like, is there anybody that's going to be there at pick 11 that you're like, oh yeah, this is worth throwing away games for? I don't think so. Those guys tend to be in the top 5, but they're certainly in the top 10. So the tanking conversation, it's as far as I'm concerned, it's pretty dead. We're not losing out anyway, in all likelihood. I seriously doubt we lose out. And even if we do, the reward is no longer that good. It's like you're going to pick around 10 or 11 at best. I would expect to end up somewhere around there in that hypothetical scenario. So if that's worth it to you, then that's worth it to you. But I don't know why it would be. The players you get in that range are not going to be radically better than the players that you can get later in the first round. In fact, at that point, the draft becomes a little bit of a crapshoot with the talent levels of players. So you could even argue that it's not all that different. Like, imagine how different life would be if Houston had lost their last game of the season last year and ended up with Bryce Young instead. They actually got saved because they won their last game and picked second instead of first. Because I have heard they were going to pick Bryce Young. Okay, so that's it for the tanking side. So I'm going to kind of gear away from the tanking stuff at this point because there's not much upside anymore. There's very little upside to the idea of this team losing games being a good thing. If we had lost last night, maybe a little different. But anyway, rooting guide post-mortem. Chargers Raiders, that's a game that has nothing to do with us. It's just like this is one of the games where you can look at it through a lens of potential draft pick stuff. So I guess it's good that the Raiders won because now they're on the table to go below us in the draft, I guess. But again, the only reason we're thinking about that is because there's nothing else going on in this game. Chargers Raiders has nothing to do with us. Vikings Bengals, this was a really important result for us. This was very crucial. It puts the Vikings in a very difficult spot where they're going to need to win out to probably get in, and they have a brutal end of season schedule. This was one of the best results we got over the weekend. Steelers Colts was, I mean, it was pretty thin. The Colts winning makes it less likely the Broncos get in the playoffs, which is good for our pick. But the Steelers winning would have improved our strength of schedule a little bit. So either way, it's very, very thin. Broncos Lions, again, this only concerns our third round pick because we're not catching the Lions, and I had harbored no illusions that we were gonna like the Lions were gonna get knocked down to the wild card. We would end up in the wild card, and we would end up jumping them because we owned the head to head. That wasn't gonna happen. So I wanted the Lions to win so they could run away with the division, and also because we might own the Broncos' third round pick. So I was good with that. Good result. Not huge, but significant, not trivial. Bears Browns. Bears basically dead at this point now because of this game, so that's nice. I don't think the Bears were really going to get involved anyway, but it's nice to basically have it cut out. The Browns winning also makes it a lot harder for the Broncos to get into the postseason, so that helps with the third round pick angle, I guess. Buccaneers Packers, this was pretty big. This wounds the Packers a lot. They had a very easy road to the playoffs because of their schedule. Now they don't. Now they really need to excuse me. Now they need to win out, and they might even need some help on top of it. So it was actually really big. Now it does muddy the waters in the NFC South, like I went over this morning, but I think that's okay as long as Tampa Bay keeps winning. If Tampa Bay can close out that division, which it seems like they've got a good chance to, we're good, we're fine, life is good, I'm happy. So I'm willing to live with the potential risks there. It helps smack Green Bay down. Texans Titans was another game that didn't really mean anything to the Seahawks playoffs, but again, they're sending their first round pick to Arizona. We want them to win almost always, I think, just because of that. Also, Texans winning makes it harder for the Broncos to get in the playoffs, I guess. But the main thing is that first round pick that Arizona is getting no longer looks that good. In fact, I think you can actually see it on Tankathon. It is currently sitting at 17th. We all thought that pick was probably going to end up in the top 10 before the season started, so that's great. Jets Dolphins. There wasn't much here. If the Jets had won and the Seahawks had lost, then we would probably be playing a little bit of a game where we tried to jump them in the draft order. But that's no longer a realistic possibility because we did win, so I don't even care about that. Chiefs Patriots. We wanted the Patriots to solidify a high pick, high as possible. They're sitting at the second overall pick now, which is great. They're a tiebreaker ahead of Arizona, but it's a pretty solid tiebreaker. So as long as New England loses out or keeps pace with Arizona, we are almost certainly good there, that at least they're going to pick ahead of them. So Arizona stays out of that top 2 for now. It's going to be difficult for them to fall out of the top 3, which is kind of the sweet spot, I think, but it's on the table. Washington is hanging around for sure. If Arizona wins one game the rest of the way, they're in trouble. Giants Saints, this is one of the games that did not go our way. The Giants would have been a little bit of a problem had they won, because at that point they're 6-8 and suddenly they could actually make a playoff run. But I think this is better. I think it would have been better because it would have really kind of sent the Saints reeling. At that point, the Saints would have basically been, you could have crossed them off almost, because it would have been so hard for them to overcome that. Plus, at that point, they're just not a good team. So that was unfortunate, but it does have a small side effect of getting rid of the New York Giants, at least, I guess. Falcons kind of wrecked their own playoff chances, which was nice. Very, very useful. Very appreciated. So Carolina, they still own the number 1 pick that they're sending to Chicago, so that didn't hurt that. So as long as they maintain that, we're good. So they can afford to win one game. If they win another, it gets a little bit dicey. But Atlanta going to 6-8 is actually really nice for the Seahawks. Commanders Rams, this was obviously the one that didn't go our way. I don't think anybody expected it to, but they teased us a little bit there at the end. They made it kind of interesting for a little bit there, but they're a team that's just been completely lifeless ever since we beat them way back a month and a half ago. So the Rams, because of this win, are going to be very hard to get out of the playoffs at this point. In fact, as I said in my early morning video, I think we kind of just have to shrug our shoulders and say they get in. 49ers Cardinals, wanted the Cardinals to win just to knock their draft pick down a little bit, but I wasn't expecting it. Didn't happen. Cowboys Bills was really interesting because on the one hand, screw the Cowboys, and also the Bills winning makes it a little bit harder for Denver to get in the playoffs. So that helps the third round pick situation just a little bit. But I do wonder if we would have preferred a Cowboys win, because that would have kept the heat on the 49ers to win out, because they would have had the Cowboys maybe right on their tail. So they would have had pressure to actually win all their games. And that meant they wouldn't have rested starters against the Rams in Week 18. So that angle is intriguing. And it really comes down to what the 49ers do this upcoming week against the Ravens, if it matters. But I do think you can make a pretty good argument that we actually wanted the Cowboys to win just to keep the heat on the Niners, because it's not like the Cowboys are going to miss the playoffs now. In fact, they clinched. Ravens, Jaguars, I guess it was slightly better if the Jaguars win so they can maintain control of that division, because it does slightly weaken Denver's position. But that's just the third round pick. Like, there's very little there. We played the Ravens this year too, so it helps the strength of schedule that they win. So it depends on what you value more. So I think this one was kind of either or. And that's it for the Rooting Guide post-mortem. I know that it's not super compelling to talk about this stuff because I already made that video this morning. But I like to go ahead and keep things to the schedule. And it was a good week overall. It wasn't perfect, but we got the help we needed. And the Seahawks actually helped themselves on Monday night. So it can be celebrated, and it can be, it's something that we can be happy about, because we actually got something out of it this time. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. More videos coming later. I got a couple things to catch up on.